everybody. I'm Sean Reynolds from Sportsnet, about to be joined by Ken Wiebe from the Winnipeg Free Press. Together we are Kenny and Renny, and this is the Kenny and Renny post-game show after a game in which the Winnipeg Jets snapped a 5-game losing streak. Hey, I'll say this. My Uncle Marv was at the game here tonight. He doesn't get a lot right, but I thought he got this one right when he said he thought this was a building block victory for the Winnipeg Jets. Now, he looked at that game and he said, not exactly the kind of game that instills a lot of confidence in you about this team, but the kind of game where they got across the finish line, they get a win, they break that 5-game losing streak, and maybe it's something you take and you move forward from. I couldn't agree more. I find myself more and more, especially as the losses have piled up and leading into those losses. I think you'll have heard me say it on a number of the podcasts here that we've done heading into that Jets losing streak, that I used to find myself in lockstep with what Rick Bowness would say after games. He was, like the absolute king of the truth serum and would just come out and tell you exactly what he saw. I love the line that he always used to use when he'd talk about the Jets not playing the game the way that he thought that they should play. He'd say, well, you saw what happened out there. And I liked that. I liked that kind of approach from a coach, especially coming from a coach before that used to try and tell you over and over again that what you were seeing, you weren't actually seeing. I love the approach of a coach who is basically laying it out there and saying, you saw what happened out there tonight, admitting when there were mistakes and admitting when a team wasn't playing the way it should play. I think that Rick Bowness has realized that, the bluntness and the truth serum was not necessarily received as well as he would have liked by the Winnipeg Jets players, or at least they didn't respond to it the way that he thought that they would. And I think he's taken a different approach now. And I think a lot of what you've heard over the last little while is him kind of saying the things that he thinks that the Winnipeg Jets need to hear. He talked about tonight, seemed like he really liked that game, although he bluntly said that the second period wasn't good enough. It wasn't good enough. But he said they did enough to win that game. I agree with that. That's why they win that game. I don't think the Winnipeg Jets win that game without Connor Hellebuyck, but at the same time, maybe that game's not as close as it is, if not for Tristan Jarry, right? But you take a look at the stats in that game. I think the stats are pretty even on both sides. Pittsburgh probably loses this one on the inability of their power play to get anything going, but I once again think Connor Hellebuyck had something to do with that. But if anyone was thinking the Jets were going to break out of that 5-game losing streak and do so looking like, that team that we saw not that long ago, that team that you saw, in December leading up to Christmas, the team that you saw, in late November. If anyone thought we were going to see that team that could be mistaken for, or maybe considered to be one of the best, if not the best teams in the NHL at that time, this was a far cry from that. Let's be sure to talk about the situation they were in tonight. Yes, they played a Pittsburgh Penguins team. They're 7 points now out of the playoffs after what happened with the Winnipeg Jets here tonight. That's not to say that, because you're out of the playoffs, you're not a capable team. But this is a Pittsburgh Penguins team that was playing the back half of a back-to-back. This is a Pittsburgh Penguins team that is the oldest team in the NHL. I don't think it is absolutely confidence-inspiring to say that the Winnipeg Jets came out and won a game that I think statistically they were probably pretty darn close to, with the oldest team in the NHL coming off a back-to-back. If there's a team that should be affected by fatigue, it's probably the oldest team in the league. But they get the win. And so I go back to what my Uncle Marv said coming out of that game. It's a stepping stone maybe to something greater. It's a building block to getting back to where they were. But this is by no means the Jets getting back to where they were. This is the Jets finding, I don't even want to say that. You're not going to win every game. You're not going to lose every game. This is a night where two teams came out on the ice and I thought looked to be pretty even teams. The Jets found a way to come out on top and they get that victory. the fact that you are looking like you are a fairly even team and coming out on top against a team that's probably looking like they're going to miss the playoffs on the other side of the bracket and maybe miss it by a significant amount. Not the kind of thing that says best team in the NHL. Maybe it's their first step in trying to get back to such a lofty title. That's my take on the whole thing. Time to bring in the man with the best music in the business to talk about it. Here comes Kenny. Ken, I'm not sure if how much of that you picked up, but I mentioned my Uncle Marv, who was at the game here tonight. Kenny's water bottle says Uncle Marv deserves more respect. Kenny's water bottle. This may be the worst take you've ever had on the show. Uncle Marv deserves less respect than that. He's out there raiding my wine fridge right now as we speak. Pat Canuga's asking if he's going to be a guest tonight. I wouldn't be surprised if he kicked down the door and stumbled in here. He's always talking about the home field shovel that we were getting away or giving away last year. And I showed him the office space, probably the worst thing I did. But good to have Uncle Marv in town with my Auntie Jenny, two of my absolute favorites. He thought, Ken, that tonight was a game where he was like, meh, they won, and that's good, and they stopped the 5-game losing streak. I thought it was brilliant analysis. What do you take away from that?
Well, I'd say it was not a Picasso, I think, if we're going by the Picasso standards, but it's the type of win you would expect from a team that's been struggling. I would say that the Jets did a really good job out of the gate. We've been complaining about their starts, especially coming out of the All-Star break. I thought they were very good in Toronto and pretty good in the home game here in the first period. They were not good in Philadelphia. They were not good in Pittsburgh on the road coming out of the break. So I would say the Jets, you talked about Jari in the open. I caught that part. I mean, if Jari wasn't sharp in the first 5 minutes, the Jets could have scored two there. So I would say they were definitely, I wouldn't say it was only flashes for the Jets, but I love the realization from the Jets, from Nikolai Ehlers that, good job. You played 40 good minutes, but the second period was not up to their standard. And most of that, Rick Bowness did not care to get into, even though he was asked about 3 or 4 different ways. He opened the door, but he was not letting anybody in between the ears of what was going on there. I think that was pretty self-evident and assessed by Ehlers, and pointing to himself in particular. Jets just got a little bit too cute with the puck. He didn't want to single out anyone for penalties or anything. He quickly dismissed the theory from Murat Atesh that it was the penalties that got the Jets in trouble and killed the momentum. He just thought that the Jets were, I think, a little bit too careless with the puck, got a little bit loose defensively, and as a result, that's why he shortened his bench in the third period, and that meant that Cole Perfetti and Gabriel Velarde and Morgan Barron didn't take a lot of even strength shifts late in the game. I would say Connor Hellebuyck was, I wouldn't say he was at fault by any stretch of the imagination in Pittsburgh, but he was very sharp today. He had to be, especially on those power plays that you mentioned, Sean. He made a good save on Jansen Harkins early, but I really thought that he stabilized things when those breakdowns for the Jets were happening. And overall, special teams, penalty kill, pretty good, but gave up a lot of quality chances. 5-on-5 play, I would say, in the first and third was very solid. But a little bit loose for me in the second period is what I saw defensively in terms of structure. But I would say it was a significant step forward. I would not say it was a template game for the Winnipeg Jets, but I would say there were pieces of the template that were evident probably through 40 plus minutes. But if you want to win games against the Boston Bruins and teams like that, Vancouver, the Jets have their first of 3 tests against Vancouver coming up. You've seen them live a couple times this year, Sean. I think that if the Jets want to go head-to-head with Vancouver for top spot in the Western Conference, they're going to need to clean up that second period, I would say. Overall, I thought their top line was fantastic in the game. I thought the first couple shifts, I saw a couple of signs for Monahan, Velarde, and Perfetti, but then you saw a little bit too much looking for the perfect play. And then, by the end, they weren't together because the Jets were protecting that 1-goal lead. I mean, I think Gabriel Velarde's had a fantastic year for the Jets, Sean, but I would say he's going through a bit of a rough patch in terms of his overall game. And Rick Bonus's comment was pretty pointed. I'm going to get it right here. And again, it wasn't necessarily directed at Gabriel Velarde, but it's impossible to ignore the fact that Velarde, who is a very responsible two-way player, was not on the ice.
Yeah,
protecting lead. Like, that is a position he has had a lot this year. We're going to use him, and you get a 2-goal lead. They're coming in, and just get all the reliable players out there. Well, for a lot of this year, Velarde has been very reliable, but obviously, Sean, we've talked about this a ton. We're not talking about this isn't Kevin Hayes territory. I'm just using this as an example because in that playoff series, Kevin Hayes made a kind of a lazy play in the defensive zone, and it led to a goal. And right after that, you saw Kevin Hayes on the fourth line from Paul Maurice for the majority of the remainder of that series. I'm not saying that's happening to Gabriel Velarde. I don't think that's happening at all, and I expect him to be bouncing back. It looks pretty evident that he's still kind of battling through that lower body injury that put him on the shelf for a little bit. But overall, I think that there's been a lot of subtle message sending in the last couple games, but this is what we've talked about. The Jets need to win games, and when you need to win games, you're putting out the guys that you trust at that particular time. So I would say that it's not cause for concern, but it's something that we both noticed in the hockey game, and you can't ignore that. Having said that, I thought the Ehlers line was fantastic, really moving the puck well. They were dangerous. I love Vladislav Nemestikov's game. Not surprised at all that he got the bump up with Monahan and Iafallo late in the game, protecting the lead. I thought his physical engagement was fantastic, and he was playing a great game, very involved. With the buffet trip here, can't go anywhere without giving notable props and deserved props to the Adam Lowry line, which I thought really did a great job of setting the tone in this hockey game. And lo and behold, there's Nino Niederreiter going to his office and delivering a goal from in and around the blue paint, which is a blue paint. It was a vintage blue plate paint special for a guy who's been living there. He's up to 13 goals, snaps the 15-game drought, and that line was very good today. Whether they had scored or not, they had done their job, Sean, in a game where they really needed them to go.
It's
want to give that dog a cameo here or what? You're making me nervous.
I can't.
Okay.
Sorry.
The
dog's here. He doesn't jump up on command.
Okay.
He's too big of a horse. Here we go. There's the dog.
There you go.
There.
Hey, what do you think of my tie, by the way? What do you think of this Sean Reynolds special here?
Oh, look at that
Buddy.
beauty! I knew I saw it somewhere before. Hey,
that's how I'm supporting you here on the broadcast.
Do you want to know where I got that tie?
I know. That's why I'm showing it off.
I'll tell you. It's a little place called Vittorio Rossi down on Corridon Avenue. The kind of place where people will say, "Hey, where'd you get that tie? It's a nice tie." Well, I got that tie, Ken, at Vittorio Rossi down on Corridon Avenue. I walked in. I said, "Hey, I'm here not from Kenny and Renny." I said, "I am Renny. I'm looking for Frankie and the boys. Could you do me up right?" And that's exactly what they did. And it's why you should do the same thing, except tell them that Kenny and Renny, because Ken looks great. I like that. I love the Hitman look. Cold, ice cold. I got my Victorio threads on as well here. You should do everyone. Head on down there. Tell them Kenny and Renny. It's interesting. You bring up the third line. I think that's a pretty good line. I think it's the kind of line that may have a little bit of staying power out there. This is what I was talking about when I think a lot of people were seeing the way that things were going the last little while, and I think a lot of people were thinking, "Oh, it's time to try something different, time to break the third line, all this kind of stuff." I think what the Jets needed at this time was a little bit of stability. I think they needed that line to kind of get back to the idea of being that identity line of going out and creating momentum for the team. I had a good conversation with Adam Lowry today about just that, about how that line had been able to create momentum and really kind of drive the team for a long time. Seemed to dry up the last little while. And the conversation I had with him, he basically said he thought they'd done a good job of going out and like halting the other team's momentum and starting it. But then it was our question to ourselves has been, what's next? Like once we do that, we get a little bit of momentum. What's next? What comes after that? And he said, our job as a third line is to open up doors for everybody else on the ice. And I think they got back to doing that a little bit more. Again, like you said, the blue paint special. Congrats to Nate Schmidt. That's a pass off the backboards. This isn't a guy missing the net. That's a pass that he makes there. That's a gorgeous, gorgeous play. It was good to see that line get back onto things there. And I got to say this, before we get into the first line, which I thought was flying, the game started out, I thought this was interesting, Ken, because we had our conversation with Rick Bowness when he came out afterwards. And I kind of pointedly said to him, and they talked about this right off the bat in the broadcast. I'd said to him, like, the team's not scoring. Is there an overarching theme that you would say is the reason why this isn't happening? And he was like, it's just like, we got to get the puck to the net. Like we keep foregoing all these opportunities to shoot. And in the end, what happens is we're just taking away opportunities for himself. And I'd said to him, like that Kyle Connor breakaway the other night. And he said, that's exactly it. Like here we've got the best shooter on our team going in on a breakaway, and he chooses to hold up and try and pass the puck, and it doesn't even make it to the front of the net. The thing I thought was interesting, Ken, is he's trying to get that message through to his players. And then the start of the game, like it's one of those, take the good with the bad. The Jets started out and did a great job of jumping on a tired team and getting their energy up and coming out and having that great start. But as part of that great start, they were doing the exact opposite of what their coach told them to do. Just get the puck on net, get it off the pad, do it. And it's one of those things where I used to talk about the Jets and they'd pull out those victories and I'd say, it's not a good thing that they won this game because it just means that they're going to do the same thing again. They didn't learn their lesson. I wonder if this is one of those times they didn't learn their lesson and that they finally do score on the gorgeous pass by Nick Ehlers. That's a no-doubter, and maybe what you needed was a no-doubter to beat Tristan Jarry tonight the way that he was playing. But what did you just take away from the idea of the Jets like continuing with the overpassing that I do think continued outside the first period? And this team, despite winning, despite getting a hot start, despite doing a lot of things they're supposed to be doing, seeming to not at all get the memo that was typed in capital letters and bold print, start getting the puck to the net.
Yeah, I would say this, Sean, and yes, folks at home, apologies for the Zamboni making its way around the ice, but that's occupational hazard here, so we're going to have to live with it. I'll try to mute as best I can. I would say
hold on.
First couple of shifts.
Hold on. There's something got to be going on. We're not going to. We got to come back with your mic because your mic is kind of balanced.
Oh, hang on.
But don't worry about it right now.
No, we're on Samson. Here we go.
Okay.
Sorry, I was thinking it was your mic. Sorry about that.
Yeah, that's okay. No, okay.
You sound better
now
too
that we've fixed that issue,
good news.
Get at it. What did you have to say, Ken?
Yeah, I mean, the first couple of shifts, man, I mean, the Jets it was looking like a track meet. The Jets were creating defensively, but odd man rushes, and man, you're thinking on the first one, Mark Scheifele, shoot. And then, kind of a 3-on-1 turned into nothing. And you kind of wondered, you're right, Sean, you're kind of thinking, well, this is the message and the players aren't listening again. But to me, it's more of the Jets were not trusting their instincts for a while during this stretch where they only scored the 10 goals in 8 games. They were passing when they should shoot, shooting when they should pass. Kind of when you pause, now that pass is not available to you, all of those things. So I think it's just kind of getting back to trusting your instincts. And that's what I saw the Jets doing as the game went on. Yes, there were still a couple examples of overpassing. The Penguins were a little bit loose also defensively, I thought. Some of that would have been the fatigue factor, as you mentioned. But I thought the Jets did a better job of getting pucks to the net as the game wore on. and they really did a good job of using their speed. Sean, you and I have been talking about the forecheck or the lack thereof in the 2 games in Pennsylvania earlier this week. I thought their forecheck was much better in terms of what they were doing, in terms of generating and creating some havoc and turning pucks over and some disruption. But overall, yeah, I mean, there were a couple instances for sure that the Jets should have been, not looking for the perfect play and maybe shooting a little bit more. I think there was an example from Cole Perfetti that thought he had a great look and he kind of passed it. And even the one, too, Niederreiter, even after he had scored, Sean, he had a chance where it looked like he was kind of, I think it was more, the shot was a little bit more wide. It wasn't that he was necessarily passing. But overall, not a ton to complain about. But yeah, I mean, there's certainly still another, that was not the A+ game for the Jets. I would say it was more like, B to B+ game, depending on the night.
I was going to say B-. B-.
Yeah, maybe. Let's give him a B. I mean, I would say the A+ game.
You're one of those generous teachers, Ken. I like.
Oh yes, apparently yes. I'm an easy marker. Just trying to participation medals for everyone, but I don't have that in-class experience that you do. So I didn't have anybody giving me a hard time. But yeah, I mean it's a factor, and I also think too, as simple as it was for the Jets to score 2 goals. You're right. It was unlikely that they were going to blast out and get 5. But at the same time, being at 2 instead of 0 against Jari, who had been absolutely fantastic against him and has been throughout his career. I don't have the numbers with me, but I think 5-0 record and a very low goals against number. And, I think it's a step increment. We were talking about incremental steps towards the erosion of the foundation the last couple games. This was an incremental step in the other direction.
Yes.
I thought there were a lot more pieces of the fabric that were intertwined and a little bit more connected today. Obviously, still, they're working on that chemistry factor, and, there are still some guys that are in a bit of an offensive funk. There's no doubt about that. I thought that Sean Monahan took another step forward in his game here. He's a guy who was getting some penalty kill time today, which I really thought was a smart move, getting him into that rotation. Also, too, I know one of the reasons when Rick had him out were for some defensive zone draws. Larry TSG also says, if it wasn't for Hellebuyck, what would the score have been? I mean, that's that's what Nikolai Ehlers said. If the Jets didn't get 15 saves from Connor Hellebuyck in the second period, they probably weren't going to be leading the game. But that's you don't, as Kelly Rudy, our friend, likes to say, Sean, you don't penalize a team that has an elite goalie that gets good goaltending. That's part of the deal, right? I mean, that's not a detriment, and that's not you don't penalize a team for having excellent net minding. So I would say too, some things still need to be cleaned up. There was. It was a high event game for, I know a lot of people are all over Logan Stanley, and now Sean too. I mean, let's 23 minutes in. I mean, did Logan Stanley, I know Rick spoke up in his favor and said, based on what he's been doing, he's been fine. Having said all that, do we expect Logan Stanley to complete the hat trick and play on Wednesday, or with 2 practices to come, Monday and Tuesday, before Wednesday, do you think the Jets consider a Ville Heinola recalled now that he's got his 12th game in and he scored a goal tonight against Grand Rapids?
If he's not, I don't know what we're doing at this stage. But I mean, I guess there's worried about bringing people up and bringing people down. I think I've made my feelings known on this. Ville Heinola made the team. He should be here. Just for the sake of, I think it's goodwill to show the people in your organization that you're an organization that is going to give the fair shake and give the opportunities to the people who deserve them, right? Like that was Rick Bowness's credo coming in as the head coach of the Winnipeg Jets, is guys were going to earn their ice time and earn their way onto this team. Ville Heinola did that already at the beginning of the year. It was decided at that time by the coach. I know there's a lot of people talking about Stanley. Maybe we should get into a conversation about Stanley, but I thought, the penalties tonight, I didn't think helped him, although I liked at least that he had a little bit of an edge there. His game didn't stand out massively to me. I know that he gets an assist in this game, but I don't think Logan Stanley is doing the things that you would want to see from a guy who's like Logan Stanley is sitting in the background, and we know from his agent that he's a guy who's sitting there thinking that the Winnipeg Jets aren't giving him enough of an opportunity. He wanted to move elsewhere to get that opportunity. Yet the game that he plays when he does get opportunities do not strike me as a guy who is pouncing and jumping on top of his opportunities. He seems careless to me on the ice far too often. It's a little bit, chaotic when he gets out there. Sometimes the penalties again tonight that he takes are penalties that don't necessarily need to be taken. Like they're not, I don't know. I take a look at this and I think like if he stays in the Jets lineup and this is him at the top of his game trying to say, I deserve to keep this shot, where does that game go from here? And he's far too old for me as a 25-year-old now. He's far too old to be a guy that you're thinking, yeah, just get his feet underneath him and then he's going to get better and better and better and better and better. Like, I don't see that. I think we've got a pretty good book on who Logan Stanley is. What we don't have a good book on is Ville Heinola at the NHL level. It's past time. He needs to get up. That to me is blindingly obvious at this point.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't like the second call is kind of flimsy, especially coming after an obvious trip in the neutral zone. But still, at the same time, Sean, Logan Stanley is trying to audition as a penalty killer. He can't be in the box for 4 minutes if you're trying to be on the penalty kill, right? I mean, that's an issue. The assist is a D-to-D pass, so I mean, yes, you give the guy credit for getting a point, but yeah, I mean, I think there were some areas where there were some moments where he looked fine, and other moments where needs improvement. I mean, that's just the way it is, and right now, like you said, I think the Jets know what they have, and I think it's an incredibly difficult position to be in, having played only 2 times since December 12th. But again, it kind of, to me, Sean, it just reinforces how impressive it is what Kyle Capobianco did last year, going months without playing and then coming in and kind of not missing a beat in terms of his skating and outlet passes and all of those things. So, I personally would like to see, again, this is, Jets know what they're doing. They're in a good spot, but they're playing the San Jose Sharks. They're playing one of the worst teams in the league. They're not a physical team. Ville would be a perfect opportunity to put him in the lineup and not to be concerned about getting pushed around or whatever the concerns may or may not be. So for me, I think it's an opportune time to get him in there. But yeah, I mean, we've spent enough time kind of talking about it, but I just thought it was important to kind of get it out of the way.
Yeah. Interesting comment here by Jordy Angus, who says Ville is going to ask out if he doesn't play at some point soon. You know what I started thinking about was the Bernie Sanders Ville meme that he put out there a couple of years ago. And I think to myself, when he put that out, the whole idea of him being like bored and just waiting to be given his chance. If you would have told Ville Heinola at that time that it's February, I don't know why I looked at my watch, February 2024, and he'd still be kind of waiting for that chance. Like, imagine how he would have felt at that time. I think Ville himself
now, again, the injury was a factor this year, obviously.
Of course it was. But like, if you would have gone and told them, yeah, that's the way you feel, because you're probably not going to be like in the lineup full time until somewhere in 2024. That would be one of those things that I don't know. He probably would have gone crazy at that point. Anyway, I want to make a couple of turns here. I do want to talk about, get to the first line, and I want to talk about Nikolai Ehlers being moved up to that line. We did run a little story in the show, Ken, on Nick Ehlers. We never got to do this, but the numbers that we had ready to go, because Rick Bowness brought it up and he talked about the idea that there was a good chance, or there was a chance that they may move to Vilardi, Ehlers, and Scheifele at some point tonight, depending on how the game went. That didn't happen, but Ehlers did go up to that first line. And the fact of the matter is the Jets' top line's numbers have been at their best this season when Nikolai Ehlers is on that line. And no doubt moving him there paid off here tonight with that great goal. And hey, if you are looking to pay off high interest credit cards or debt, we suggest you go talk to our friends at Cambrian Credit Union about their payoff loan. They can show you how taking out a loan to pay off your debt actually gets you debt free faster, and you can save thousands of dollars. Go to Cambrian.mb.ca to book an appointment online. Back to that first line, him moving there. What did you see from that first line tonight, and why, or what? Here, maybe a better question: how does Nikolai Ehlers change that first line, Ken, resulting in what we saw from them tonight?
Yeah, I mean, for me, I saw Nikolai Ehlers pushing the pace, and during the stretch, there have been times where Kyle Connor has been dancing out on the ice since he's been back. Now it's, 8 games? But there have also been times where things aren't coming as naturally for Kyle as they had been earlier in the season. The thing with playing with Nikolai Ehlers is Sean, think of the time when we covered the 2022 Stanley Cup Final. The Avalanche play at warp speed, right? That was what we talked about that entire series. When Ehlers is on that line, all three players are exceptional skaters, like high-end skaters. So for me, yes, there is that east-west element that is a little bit unpredictable at times. And we know over the course of time that both Mark Scheifele and Kyle Connor enjoy playing with straight-line players and predictable players. At the same time, if Nikolai Ehlers can sort of rein in his east-west game a little bit, he can still be incredibly dangerous with those guys. He can be predictable. He's an excellent passer, as we saw in that perfect sauce over the stick of Erik Karlsson for the one-timer for Scheifele. But, Sean, the biggest thing of that play is where it started. Ehlers makes a great defensive play inside. It was an incredible read. Knocks the puck out of the air and then gets going north. I think it was Ryan Graves that he got behind, and just an absolutely brilliant defensive effort. And we always talk about defense. What are you giving up compared to what are you getting? I think today the shot attempts were 20-13 in favor of the Jets' top line at 5-on-5. Those are good numbers. They're going to get dangerous chances. Mark Scheifele can also pass really well. Kyle Connor can pass, even though he's a natural finisher. So those three guys have all of the elements to become an elite line. To me, we can't forget this, and it's easy to forget because of what happened to Ehlers last year, Sean. When I was in Banff for those games, or for the practices after the last preseason game against Calgary in the spring of, in the fall of 2023, that was the line Rick Bowness wanted to see. That's how they were for most of training camp. And in game 2, Nikolai Ehlers is hurt. So they didn't really get that line together for very long. And it's now having a chance to be unleashed. And I would say that was an important start. I mean, they were creating all kinds of chances. And I think that they can be a dominant when they're, as long as they're strong defensively, they can be a dominant line. And Merle Peters asked, did Kyle Connor come back too soon? I don't think he's come back too soon. I just think that this reminds me so much of training camp, Sean. Ehlers didn't play a preseason game. He was only on the ice with the main group a few times. It took him, 8 to 10 games before he kind of got his legs going? It's the same for Kyle Connor. When you have a knee injury like he had, same with Gabriel Velarde. You miss 16 games in that stretch of the season. You're quickly playing catch-up. And it's hard to catch up when you're a guy who's reliant on his legs. And that was the thing we saw with Ehlers so much of last year. He was productive when he was out there. But Sean, he admitted to us, he did not have his legs for a long time last year. So you have to give these guys some time. And I think that Kyle Connor will get himself right back up to speed. Like that's how he plays when he's rolling. And yes, he's been cleared medically, but it takes time to make up for that lost time. Sorry, that's a long-winded way of saying I like where that top line started and I like where they could be going. I just want to get into it quickly here, Sean. What did you think of Rick Bowness saying that if he would put Velarde up with them, it means having to put Cole Perfetti on his off wing? Any thoughts on that? I mean, I talked with this about Kelly Moore in the pregame. We know that Cole Perfetti played on his off wing with Pierre-Luc Dubois and Kyle Connor for part of last year. To me, it's a matter of maybe he's not comfortable putting Perfetti on his off wing in terms of his board play, in terms of getting the puck out of the zone, and maybe it would open him up to some hits. And also too, I think ultimately when a guy like Perfetti is going through a bit of an offensive funk, you want to kind of make life as easy as possible, and playing your off wing, even if you're comfortable at all three positions, is another thing for him to kind of think about when he really wants him to get back to just not really thinking out there and letting his instincts take over. What did you think of that this morning?
Well, I think the difference between him playing on a line right now with Sean Monahan and either Ehlers or whoever he had there is a lot different than him playing on a line with Pierre-Luc Dubois and Kyle Connor, when so much attention goes to Kyle Connor and shutting him down. And Pierre-Luc Dubois, when he plays the way that he can play, is playing that certain way. I think you're opening up a conversation that we should probably have about Perfetti. So I think I flagged the comment, but someone was talking at the beginning of the show about Perfetti, that maybe we should get to that. Like I'm starting to wonder if Cole Perfetti at this stage belongs in the top 6 of an NH or of a true Stanley Cup contending team. I think I've watched too much this season and been left wanting for too much of this season by the second line. And I'm talking about, like, even after a guy like Nemestikov went up there and I thought carried the mail for that line for a long time. And even after Nikolai Ehlers was there, there's been something missing too long to get that going. And I'm just wondering if it's time and space that's being occupied by Cole Perfetti, who I'm starting to wonder if is ready to be a top 6 guy or a driver on a second line, or even a guy who helps the second line become a true scoring threat on a team that has the aspirations that the Winnipeg Jets have. I know a lot of people are talking about, trades being made. It's funny because someone I saw online, someone talking about Elliott, who had said, Ken, right, if you missed it, they said the Jets made their big move in Sean Monahan, and I don't think that the Jets are done there. And I'm wondering if there's another big move to be made. And when you hear talk of a guy like Jake Gensel being available, I don't know that the Winnipeg Jets, in the situation they are in, where they think that they can potentially win and do the stuff that they can, do to win a cup, that if you had the opportunity to go get a Jake Gensel, would you not go get a Jake Gensel and upgrade your second line with him on that line? And then you've got the balance of Ehlers and Velarde and Kyle Connor as your top 4 wingers, rather than Cole Perfetti in that situation. To me, when you talk about Rick Bowness essentially saying out loud that he's not able to try certain things because you're not able to put Cole Perfetti in that spot, or you're worried about putting him on your off wing, to me, that's problematic. Like, to me, if you want to be like that team, that NHL team that is going to be seriously pushing for a cup, you can't be hindered by a single player that is keeping you from doing stuff on the first line because of the ramifications it will have on the second line. And sorry, we just don't think that this player can go into that spot. To me, that was a comment I think that exposed Cole Perfetti a little bit. If I'm a player out there and I'm finding that there's plans my team would like to make and they can't execute their plans because they're worried that I'm not going to be able to step in and fill the role that's left behind, that's a problem if I'm that player.
I mean, for me still, in a night where Cole Perfetti had 12:32 of ice time, still managed 3 shots on goal, 1 takeaway, a block shot. I mean, I didn't mind his game. I think there's definitely, he's not playing at the level he was earlier. We know he's still a very young player. I think there'll be plenty of time when he will be a driver. Right now he's not driving play, but he still can be a contributor in a top 6 role. Does it mean the Jets need to go out and try to get Pavel Buchnevich or Gensel? I mean, they can only do that if they're getting 50% retention. And obviously it's going to be a big price. So we'll see what happens there. I also think too, and I understand what the numbers are. We've talked about them. And yes, the numbers and the analytics are very important. To me, the biggest reason that the Jets did not go with Velarde is because Velarde's not playing the way he was before Christmas, Sean. He's not moving the way that he was.
Yeah.
And he's not as impactful. So I love what Gabriel Velarde brings to the table. But right now he's battling through something, whether it's injury or, just that this part of the season. He's also working his way back from an injury still. We know that. I think he can find that game, and I think there could come a time easily where those guys are together. But I think for me, I like Vilardi on that line because I like the potential for Vilardi playing with Sean Monahan and sort of to see what happens. So, hey, this is the longest, I think Cole Perfetti, this has got to be close to, I shouldn't say this without looking, but I mean, Cole Perfetti's still a young player. He got hurt and missed, had season injuries in each of the last 2 years. And even at a time where his production has dipped, Sean, he's 5th on the Jets in scoring, and he has more goals than Nino Niederreiter, a perennial 20-goal guy. Sorry, he's one game behind. His 51 is his career high. He played last year. He's up to game 50. I would say it looks like he's hit the wall a little bit, but, I mean, it's hard to argue that Perfetti's still been an impactful player. He's not playing that way right now, but to me, you don't put Cole Perfetti on the line with Adam Lowry, and you don't put him on the 4th line. So I think he's earned the opportunity to play his way through it. There's still a month before the deadline. If this rut carries on for another month, then for sure Kevin Cheveldayoff is going to have to look at potentially adding another top 6 forward instead of adding somewhere else. But I just think that this is what happens with young players. I think he'll work his way through it, and I think he has the tools to do that.
Yeah, I think, if we're talking about, coming back from injuries and all those different kind of things, like the big concern for me is the idea that I just don't feel like for the most part the second line has popped this year. And that worse maybe is that when players have gone down there, like we see what Nikolai Ehlers is capable of. And maybe this is the best way to put it, Ken. You see when you put Nikolai Ehlers on a line with Mark Scheifele, what happens. You see what happened when he got paired with Gabe Vilardi. And you see, on a night like tonight, what he's capable of when he's with Kyle Connor. Nikolai Ehlers has played enough time with Cole Perfetti for me to say we should be seeing something by now. We should be being like, oh my goodness, what a pair those two are together. Oh, wow. Look at the dynamic that is created and exists between these two players. And I guess I would put it like this. With a second line that we probably should be expecting more from if the Jets are going to be a true contender, I think you have to ask the question, who are the players that Cole Perfetti has built that dynamic with? And if he's not building that dynamic, I know he's 5th in scoring, but I'm not going to go along with your argument about him having more points than Nino Niederreiter. What Nino Niederreiter does on the ice when he's not scoring is far more valuable than what Cole Perfetti does. So to compare the two players
in the league forever. I mean,
right, but to compare the two players, I know, and I hear what you're saying, and I know that you're saying he's still a young player and all those things. I don't disagree with any of those things. I bring this up not because I don't think that there's a future for Cole Perfetti. I bring it up because I wonder if the right now and where the Winnipeg Jets want to go, if you are going to chisel in stone that Cole Perfetti is going to be on that second line, what the ramifications of that may be for a team that's trying to go to the Stanley Cup final. It's the only reason I bring it up. I don't want to beat up on the kid, and I don't want to say that there's not a brighter future or things. And to the point of you working his way through things, I'm waiting for the moment where I see the aha moment of something happening on that second line. And Cole Perfetti, while I think he's done some stuff here or there, he played with Nikolai Ehlers, I thought, for far too long for there not to be a wow moment where I was like, okay, these two have something, and it's something that's going to carry forward. And I don't think you can take the risk of being the Winnipeg Jets and going into the playoffs without having a second line that can really pop. Sean Monahan just got here. We're going to see what happens. Maybe the aha moment is still coming. I'm not saying blow it up right now. There's still time, but I'm saying if I'm Kevin Cheveldayoff, I'm watching as we wear our way towards the trade deadline. I'm looking for signs of a capable second line scoring line being able to do something in the playoffs. And I think as of right now, what it needs is an upgrade. And I don't know where else you go for that upgrade if it's not to find someone to replace Perfetti, because it's not Ehlers. It's probably, and then not going to be Velarde. It's not going to be Sean Monahan. It's not going to be Kyle Connor.
No, fair. But I mean, I would say that up until December 2nd, Cole Perfetti had a stretch of 15 games where he had 15 points in 15 games and had a point at least in 13 of the 15. So I would just counter that's a pretty good stretch for a guy who's basically in his, you want to call it the second full season. Let's do that. But he's gone 7 games without a point, and he has 1 assist in 10 games. Like, I'm not running away from that either, Sean. For a top 6 forward, that number is not high enough. There's no doubt about that. And Sean, we have the experience. We saw what happened to Nikolai Ehlers and Patrick Laine in the conference final in 2018 when they were young players. So this is not a knock on Cole Perfetti personally. This is what we've seen from experience. When a young player in the league is getting ready for, his first NHL playoff stretch, there are going to be rough patches. That's why you would think about adding to the top 6. I mean, again, I would maybe counter by saying Nino Niederreiter is a guy you could dump into the top 6, and then maybe you get a third-line guy to play with those guys. And there's also Alex Iafallo who could factor in there. But yes, I mean, Elliott is an incredible reporter, and I don't doubt that his information is accurate. But I also think that in the next month, even if Kevin Cheveldayoff thinks today he's made his biggest move, he can still change his mind, and he would definitely be sending out smoke screens a month out before the deadline. So, I mean, I still think the Jets are going to add a significant piece, whether that's on defense
I do too,
or up front. And I would also think
that I think both.
I think that he should. I mean, and I think that that's
agreed.
Right? I mean, that's where we're at with that. So, I mean, we'll see where it goes, but that's sort of my feeling on the thing. And again, I'm with you. I'm not ruling it out, but I also think that there's we understand. I mean, Cole Perfetti is an undersized forward, but incredibly smart player. And I think that, I see him pushing through the wall and finding a way to get back to being productive like he was. But he definitely needs to find another level. And that's hard to do in the second half of the NHL season.
I'm not calling him Jack Rosvick 2.0, which Ishboy Bruce is suggesting here. But I think we've both made ourselves clear on this issue. Hey, I want to go ahead. I want to give the Pristine Roofing wake-up call to the Winnipeg Jets, who I think got the Pristine Roofing wake-up call at the beginning of this game, jumped out with the effort that was required. I mean, in the end, the Winnipeg Jets, to me, win this game because they jump on a tired team who, had first period legs that you would expect from a team playing on back-to-backs. So it's one of these things where you need to come out, you need to be on top of your game. The Jets did exactly that, and that's why they win this game. So I give them the Pristine Roofing wake-up call, which means it's time to give North End Rick that wake-up call, 1-204-981-6289. He's the guy who will come down and show you everything that needs to be done with your roofing, your siding, your exterior needs, or you can give Pristine Roofing a call themselves at 1-204-237-7663. And Ken, could you give our main man, Sweet Lou, a shout-out while we're at it?
Yeah, that sounds good. For folks who have realty needs you'd like to have met, contact our main man, Lou Ferlin, at Royal LePage Dynamic Realty, 204-791-9971, or at the office, 204-989-5000. His email is lou@louferlin.ca. That's LOU@LOUFURLAN.ca. Lou Ferlin, excellent realtor, excellent human being, and excellent supporter of the community, including this podcast.
I know lots of people are bringing up the cat and the dog that busted the door down in the office and came in here because I was out of town for 10 days. They are absolutely starved of love and attention, and they have not left me alone since I got back into the house here. So I hope my commentary has not been as distracted as it feels with them all over me here. Ken, do you have a Johnson Group got you covered play of the game?
Oh boy. That's a good one. I thought I might have, but what do you have?
Well, I think I would just hand it all to the entirety of the game of Connor Hellebuyck here tonight. Sure, and again, you were talking about it earlier on. Someone talked about if Jari hadn't made a bunch of saves, the Jets would have won 5-1. I believe it was Waiters who said that. I think you can put it in the exact same. This actually, to me, one thing we haven't really talked about this is I think this was a little bit of an unheralded goalies duel here tonight. It doesn't feel that way because the Jets got those first 2 goals, and I think it felt for a bit like the Jets were going to go on for a romp there, and then Tristan Jarry settled the net, got his team back into it, stuck with it through right till the end of the game. Even when the Jets made a late push to break it up and make it so that it wasn't so tight, he kept it that way. On the other side of this, like, this is one of those nights where Connor Hellebuyck is the better goalie out there tonight, that metric that I like to go with, but it wasn't by much. Tristan Jarry was really good in there, but overall, I take a look at this game in the overarching theme of things. I know people love to run with the idea that they think I'm a Connor Hellebuyck hater because I like to give credit to the Winnipeg Jets defense and the success that they help bring to Connor Hellebuyck. But to me, this is just another example of one of the best, if not the best, goalies in the game.
Yeah.
Scratching out a win for his team. Like, the Winnipeg Jets needed Connor Hellebuyck to come out and have a brilliant performance for them to snap their 5-game losing streak, and he did exactly that. To me, he was the deserved first star of the game. He's the reason the Winnipeg Jets snapped this streak here. There was enough opportunity for the Pittsburgh Penguins to get back into that game. He's the reason why. So to me, I give him the Johnston Group Got You Covered play of the game. Do you have something, Ken?
No, I love it. For perspective, folks, like Tristan Jarry, when we say Jarry has been good against the Jets, 5-0 in his career, Sean, with a 0.98 goals against average and .965 save percentage. I mean, yes.
And coming into this game had tacked together like 155 straight minutes of shutout hockey against the Jets. Yeah.
Right, and 2 shutouts and 5 starts. So, I mean, you understand why Mike Sullivan put his manager's hat on and said, hey, I got to start Jarry against the Jets. But, now if you're the Penguins, you touched on it earlier, Sean. Now they're 7 points back, and now are you almost kind of second-guessing yourself starting Jarry against the Jets instead of Minnesota Wild, which should have been potentially the easier game. It's an emotional game going up against Marc-Andre Fleury. Now, I mean, I'm not blaming Nedeljkovic, and I'm certainly not blaming Jarry. I think he's the reason it was a close game. But, again, at the end of the day, the Penguins, man, it's a tough job for Kyle Dubas. I mean, you're still close enough to be there in points percentage, but man, that's a big hill to climb.
No doubt. Anyways, that's both mine and Ken's, Kenny and Renny OG's, the Johnston Group play of the game. Got You Covered play of the game. And do you run a small business in Canada? You need to look to Canada's #1 employee benefits plan, Chambers Plan, to give you a competitive edge. Chambers Plan is the simple, stable, smart choice for over 30,000 businesses countrywide. Go visit chamberplan.ca to learn more. Ken, you got a keg save of the game.
Yeah, I love the poke check, and you have. I mean, you saw it on the replay because you were at the monitor, but if you didn't, I certainly didn't see it in real time. Riley Smith, when he went between the legs, Connor Hellebuyck makes an unbelievable poke check, Sean. I mean, otherwise it's probably potentially bar down, but he really made an aggressive play. It was a great read because you're not expecting the player to go between the legs, but that's all Riley Smith really had on that play, and Connor Hellebuyck beat him to the punch. To me, on a night where he made a ton of great saves, including one on Jansen Harkins and a number on in the penalty kill, I thought that save on Riley Smith was very emblematic of a goalie really being locked in on all elements of the game, and that's why I'm going with that one.
Yeah, you nailed it, Ken. If you take a look at that replay to what you're saying, he beat him to the punch. What I love about that is, like, when you beat someone to the punch, the very description of what you're saying is someone is attacking you with speed and you're faster and you get there first. But the replay, the calm, cool, and collectiveness of Connor Hellebuyck in that moment just lends to the idea that Connor Hellebuyck is calmly a step ahead of so many people out on the ice. Like, this is one of those plays where a player's got his back to you, and all of a sudden he's trying to shield the puck and pull the puck through his legs. And a lot of goalies would get caught with looking for the puck and getting kind of drawn into what's he doing with it. And what Connor Hellebuyck realizes in that moment, that is brilliant, and that the majority of people would never see at the last minute, is I've got the short side covered. No matter what he's doing with the puck, whether I can see it or not, it doesn't matter if he can't get it past me or across my body. And the best way to do that is to put my paddle down and pull off the poke check. And he had another active stick earlier on in the game.
Yep.
And it was one of those moments where John Garrett, who was on the broadcast, Cheech, a former NHL goaltender, the other one, it wasn't even that one, Ken, the other poke check that he had, John Garrett, you could kind of see the kind of awe that he was in. And when you've got a goaltender who's like, oh, wow, in that moment, a play that a guy missed. Connor Hellebuyck has a real good understanding, and I think the Jets players know this about him. If he's really, really good in tight. We've talked about this before. I've talked about this on the whole idea of the goals saved above expected and all that kind of stuff. I think Connor Hellebuyck likes spacing stuff really, really tight to the net. And one of the things that makes it like that with him is he's become a real like A1 controlling his own crease and stopping problems before they start, snuffing them out with his sticks and his poke checks, which is why I think you just absolutely nailed it tonight. Technically, Ken, it won't go down as a save because it was never a shot on net, but he saved the potential goal there tonight, and I think you absolutely nailed it. But it doesn't matter what I think. It matters what the folks in the chat room think. And the folks at home, because they need to share with us their keg save of the game, because if they do, they're automatically entered to win a $50 gift certificate to any of the 3 fine keg locations here in the city of Winnipeg, each location finer than the last. The person who did that last podcast, that would be Andy Johnson. Andy Johnson, you're the winner of our keg save of the game. All you got to do, direct message me at SN Sean Reynolds, send me your full name, send me an email, and I will have the keg send you a $50 gift certificate, usable at any of their 3 fine keg locations here in the city of Winnipeg, each location finer than the last. And that means, Ken, we're moving on to the TransCanada Brewing Company Lamplighter of the game. What do you got?
Yeah, well, I mean, this is a toss-up for me because one of the goals is emblematic of the driving force, and the second one is a classic example of someone going back to their office to get to the dirty area to snap a 15-game goalless drought. But I have to go Ehlers because of the way that the play is made. It's not snake charmer because the Jets didn't cheat for offense on the play. It's a pretty goal, but the goal doesn't happen without the defensive play by Nikolai Ehlers to get the puck going north. That's why I'm going with the Mark Scheifele one-timer. Yes, it was a prettier goal, but more so to do with the fact the Jets have talked all week about getting offense from good defense. That's their foundation. So to me, that's a foundational play by Nikolai Ehlers. Now, it's also part of their identity to be going to the net and winning the battles in the blue paint in front of their own net, which they did a much better job of, and also at the opposition net, which is what they did when Nate Schmidt found Niederreiter. But to me, it's got to be the Scheifele goal because that play starts in the defensive zone, and that allows the Jets to use their speed to create a highlight reel special.
Yeah, you're nailing it, Ken. And I'll say it like this. The lamplighter is, you light the lamp, you score a goal. It's as simple as that, which is why it really kind of opens up the idea to however you want the goal to be scored, why it's your favorite of the game. But to me, this is one of those things that's kind of almost a litmus test of what kind of person you are. What do you value in the way that a goal is scored? Because the first one is as pretty as a picture, right? And that pass that's made. And the one thing I'll say about Ehlers is, as the Jets kept trying all of these different kind of players, the one thing that John Garrett had said as it was happening is like, they're not, they know it's a pass. They're never looking the play that's broken up when Mark Scheifele tries to sauce the pass across. I believe that's the one that was broken up.
Yep.
He never looks to shoot at any point. And John Garrett actually pointed it out. His stick's in a position where he couldn't possibly be shooting. So Tristan Jarry, even if the pass gets across, Tristan Jarry knows that it's going to be a pass. Nikolai Ehlers heads down the ice and he's looking to shoot the entire way and then sauces the perfect pass. So the goalie has to lend credence to the idea he's about to be shot on, which is why there is so much space in the net for Mark Scheifele to hit. So those are the subtleties that make that beautiful. Or do you value just getting down and grinding and doing what Rick Bowness wanted to have done there? I said this earlier on. We're talking about the subtleties of these things. I love that Nino Niederreiter gets into the crease, creates a little bit of a problem, bumps into Jari to the point that Jari is wanting his team to challenge it. They didn't. They shouldn't have. They were right not to. It's not goaltender interference, and it's not because he gets in there enough to get into Jari's head, but then gets out without impeding his progress and gets out of the crease, so that the refs can't use the rule that we just saw from earlier on, where it's like, once you go in the crease, you got to get out. You have to make an effort to get out. He goes into the crease, gets in the goalie's head, gets out. So the subtleties of what he does and then staying in his office and scoring is great. But it's the Nate Schmidt shot off the boards that I absolutely love. He couldn't get the shot through, but the Jets, when they were having a lot of success, what their defenders did is they widen the scoring potential by not always trying to shoot it on net. You shoot it off the backboards and it gets to the net front. And that's the way that you can get past really good defenses that are good at shutting down shooting lanes. I hand it to that one because of the grit of it, because it's what their coach had been asking for, because it's a brilliant play on Nate Schmidt's part. And it's a brilliant play. There's just so much, to me, there is such a, there's such a poetry to the grittiness of the game, the subtleties of the interaction between the player that's in tight on the goaltender and the stuff you get away with and the stuff you don't. I've always loved that part of the game. That's what I value. That's why I'm going with Nito Niederreiter's goal as the lamplighter of the game. A long way for me to say something that does not matter, because what I say doesn't matter, what Ken says doesn't matter. It doesn't matter, as Jeff Kabilis says, what we think. It matters says. What you think. So share with us your Lamplighter of the game. You will automatically be entered to win a Frosty Delicious 8-pack of Lamplighter Amber Ale, brought to you by our friends at TransCanada Brewing Company. If you can't wait for Kenny and Renny to gift you your very own 8-pack, you can head on down to TransCanada Brewing Company and join them in their tap room at 11290 Keniston, where we will be having our third K&R live event. A lot of people talking about how they got tickets already. We want more of you there. We want to jam-pack that room. So you got to go to Eventbrite, the link that Ken's putting up there right now. That's where you get your tickets. Head on over there. We would love to see you. We're going to have a Knights of the Round Table night there. It's going to be a great one. You do not want to miss out. And that brings me to our Lamplighter winner from our last show. That would be Bobby B. Bobby B, you know what to do. Direct message me at SN Sean Reynolds. Give me your full name and give me an email. I can send you your very own voucher that you can use to get a Frosty Delicious 8-pack of Lamplighter Amber Ale, the Nectar of the Gods, brought to you by our friends at TransCanada Brewing Company. That's it for us here. I got to go keep Uncle Marv out of the fridge there. I'm going to be wrecked here. I'm going to go upstairs. I know what's going to happen. It's going to be an ugly scene, folks. But anyways, I appreciate you tuning in. Ken, you did a great job as usual, and I will end this the way I always do. If you appreciate the conversations happening in this place, in this space, please appreciate our sponsors who fight to keep the conversation going in this space. For us, that's Vittorio Rossi, Cambrian Credit Union, Pristine Roofing, Sweet Lou Ferlin, the Johnson Group, the Keg, and TransCanada Brewing Company. Thank you to them. Thank you to all of you. Next game on Wednesday, Ken?
Yeah. Wednesday
Super Bowl predictions?
Yep.
Yeah, I'm surprised to see how many of the Jets thought San Francisco is going to win. To me, I think that I don't know if it's going to be a walk. I don't know if it's going to be close. The Kansas City Chiefs just seem to have something in them, whether it's the refs helping them out by throwing 3 flags and picking them all up. The way, like, to me, the Chiefs are the new Pittsburgh Penguins. The Pittsburgh Steelers. The football gods love them. The officials love them. The league loves them. And they're a super talented, tough team to beat in the first place. I just always feel like the Kansas City Chiefs are that team that has everything going in their favor. I'm surprised to see as many people think the San Francisco 49ers are going to do it. I think it's the Chiefs. Ken, what do you think?
Yeah, 2 great teams, but I can't in good conscience bet against Mahomes, especially with the improved Chiefs defense. And as someone who watched the Patriots for a lot of years, I have a lot of trouble betting against Steve Spagnuolo's defense. I expect the 49ers will give them an incredible game. Christian McCaffrey is fantastic. Deebo Samuel, a big weapon, but I just can't go against the Chiefs. I think it's a tight one. Chiefs by 3 or 4 is my prediction.
Right on. Thank you so much to all you. Next game on Wednesday, Ken? Sorry, in vacation mode, I just got zoned in on this. That'll be a Sportsnet game. I will be hosting once again. The whole Sportsnet crew is staying in town the whole time. So if you see someone from Sportsnet wearing a Sportsnet hat or looks like the kind of person who would work on a broadcast, buy them a Lamplighter. They're good folks in town here. Show them some of that Winnipeg charm and that Winnipeg hospitality, everybody. Until then, we will chat with you all on Wednesday. Thanks for joining us, everybody.